Welcome to the AIW Empower interview series. I'm very happy to have our guest today, Michelle Steiner. Thanks so much for joining me, Michelle.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And how are you doing today?
I am doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Apart from the snow, everything is great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your journey. Could you describe what you do for your job at this moment?
Sure. I work as a teacher's aide in a school. Some of my students have disabilities and some of them don't, but I just help to get them that little extra reinforcement and help that they need. And on my side job, I also work as a disability writer and photographer.
Oh, it's so interesting. So in terms of your career path, can you tell me about your aha moment and how that led you to be here and do what you
Sure.
do today?
I had one that was sort of a turning point a long time ago. I can remember I was very young and I was still just trying to find the right job. And I was in between jobs and I was subbing and I was dealing with an agency that helps people with disabilities to get jobs. So I just didn't seem to be getting anywhere. And I went to an event and I can remember I was waiting for a ride and this woman that had a child that had a disability was sitting with me and she waited till my mom came to pick me up. And she's like, you're going to find a job. Everything's going to work out in your life. Everything's going to do that. And I didn't realize it at the time because it took years and going back to school. But where I work at now is the same place that this company I was working with had an event. And I realized, so every time I walk in the morning, I can see that spot where I sat with that lady all those years ago. And that just led me on to the right path of this is what I was supposed to be doing.
That's really neat. It's like it really comes full circle.
Mhm.
And did speaking to that person really early on have an impact on the direction? And looking back now, do you think it would have led you to the same place had you not had that conversation?
I think it might have led to the same place because I always gravitated towards working with people that had disabilities, education, and writing has always been a big factor. But I think what this did is that this gave me that confirmation. And that's what I needed, that I was on the right path and just keep encouraging me to move forward.
Wonderful. In terms of all the different areas you've explored up until getting to this point, can you talk a little bit about previous jobs you've had?
Sure. I began working in a daycare right when I was in high school. I worked with children. My little brother was at a child care, and I was still in school. I also have worked for an office making sales calls for while I was in college. I worked in a number of different other childcare and educational facilities, just helping out with the teacher and just with working with students. I worked for an agency too that they provided services for people with disabilities. And but I always circle back to what has worked has been working in a school system with students.
And what do you find the most rewarding about your work? Excuse my dog in the background.
That's okay. What I find most rewarding about my work is getting that chance to make a difference. I work now with seventh grade students in a learning support classroom for part of my day. And I get to go back and work with them. And it's sometimes really interesting because somebody read a test to me all those years ago, and now I get a chance to do that. And somebody helped me out, and I get a chance to do that. Only what I get maybe another opportunity to do is I get to tell a lot of these students that it's okay. It's okay to have a disability. It's all and everything is going to be all right. I know that right now it doesn't seem that way, but I get that chance to do that.
That's really cool. It must be really rewarding to have that kind of impact.
Yes, definitely. It certainly is.
Is there something for you that you find more challenging in your industry, in your profession on a day-to-day basis, or even if you had to pinpoint one thing in the past few years in your career that you can point to that people should really take into consideration or at least know about if they're looking at this kind of career path?
I think if you're going to go into this career path, then you definitely have to like working with students. You definitely have to like working with families and teachers. It's a very rewarding job. It may not always pan out to pay the best, but that's something to consider. But you definitely have to think, is this going to be rewarding with working with families?
Yeah, that would be a very, very big part of your job,
Mm-hmm.
interacting not only with the students.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of interacting with both the students and the parents and having multiple kinds of conversations, how do you separate your feelings and emotions from difficult decisions or even difficult conversations?
I think sometimes it's really important to go in there knowing I can feel a certain way about something. And it's not that the feelings necessarily are bad, but it's what I do with them. So I can go in maybe not having the most positive feelings for a situation, but I have to go in and I know I need to do what I feel and what our staff feels is the right thing, despite how I'm feeling, and to just go forward with that and to have that confidence.
Wonderful. And kind of along the same lines, how do you deal with the stress? Are there resources in place? Are there things that you found has worked really well for you or in general that you would recommend be taken advantage of if there are certain resources in place?
I think a really good way of handling stress is to give myself things to look forward to, especially on the weekends. Sometimes that helps to give me something that we're, to be happy about, and that it's not always so bad. And we'll get through what's going on. I think another thing that can also be helpful is exercise. I definitely love to work out. Outside of school. So that sometimes helps to get out like frustrations or just some tough emotions. And sometimes it also helps to just know when to give yourself a few minutes, maybe in the situation, if it's applicable to leave or safe, and then just to kind of give yourself that few minutes to come back, regain your composure, and then deal with the situation.
So it's really important, I guess, to give yourself permission
Mm-hmm.
to feel what you feel and then bring yourself back.
Yep, exactly.
Excellent. And does that go along the same lines of how you motivate yourself? If
Yes,
you're in a
definitely. I love having things to look forward to, especially if it's a tough week or there's a lot going on. I can say, well, this weekend we're going to go to the museum or we're going to go to the gardens. So I try to remember those things, and that gives me something that I can look forward to.
well, that's so important.
Definitely.
And a big question for this as well, for this kind of work, what is a typical day or a typical week for you, or does that even exist?
Whatever is really a totally typical day in my line of field. I do have set hours. So I will have Monday through Friday. I am, yeah, unless it's a holiday, I am at work helping students during the daytime hours. I do have set hours, which is nice. Uh, when I'm home, when I do a lot of the writing or I do podcasts or things such as that, or the photography, I have a lot of free time to do that, like in the evenings and on the weekends, and so those are my what is typical with that. Now, anything else that happens in between, we always get a nice variety of things.
I'm very curious because I have a side job as well, and you
Mhm.
have multiple endeavors. How do you carve out the time? How do you make sure you take the time, even if you're tired? How do you go about having these multiple endeavors that you take on?
I try to take some time in the morning before I go to work for devotion. I also try to take that time to get a small workout in, just something that to kind of just get me energized and focused for the day. When I come home, I take a few minutes just for me to be able to have that, just to kind of decompress from that. And I also try to schedule things around that where I am having time where I can do stuff that's not involving work as well.
So important to have
Hmm.
some boundaries, some schedules in place, some routine.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, what aspects of your background or previous professional experience has been most helpful in your day job, in your other endeavors? What do you feel really got you prepared and you can look back on and think those were important little bits that got you here?
I think when I went back to university and I got to study the service end of special ed, and it gave me an insight of disabilities in general. And it also gave me an insight of my own learning disability and how my brain works. So some of that stuff of the problem solving and just that knowledge of what I've have learned helps me in my job when I work with students with multiple disabilities. And it helps me with my blog and being able to explain learning disabilities and being able to put them in a way that people can understand using metaphors.
Oh, metaphors. That's
Mhm.
so
Yes.
fun.
I love it. Yeah, I do a lot of nature ones because I love to take pictures of flowers and other things, and I just try to uh, compare those to what life is like with having a learning disability.
Wonderful. That sounds like it would really connect with a lot of people.
Mhm. Yes, definitely.
So, since we're talking about some things in your past, I would love to dive back in there as well and chat a bit about some things that you see now as perhaps mistakes that you made early in your career that other people maybe can avoid by learning from yours, or maybe things that maybe they'll encounter and how to come back from it.
Right. I think some of the mistakes I made early in my career was I would take jobs that I thought, okay, it's a job. I don't know if I can do any better than this. And I took some jobs that just were not really great situations for me. And I hung in those situations maybe longer than maybe was the best thing for me to do. But those jobs, I can look back and say, okay, those were some mistakes I made, but that also gave me the chance to learn how to deal with different kinds of people and to learn what I wanted and what to look for when I am going in for a job. That was something that was really important.
Yeah, and I see those as you say that too as, probably unavoidable, and that most of us probably have been there. And it's along
Mm-hmm.
taking you along your own journey of finding out what you like, what you don't like. I love that you said like learning how to speak to people because it's very different for everyone. And
Mm-hmm.
you really have to throw yourself in there and try. And it's very, very important to know that for most people, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a
Yep.
learning curve.
Right. It's a process.
Hmm.
It's a process of getting in there and seeing what's out there. I worked in a lot of rooms, especially with education. It's good to go into different ages, different types of classrooms, to meet different kinds of professionals you're going to be working with. Because some rooms are great for certain people, and some rooms are better. It's a better fit. So you do need to know what's a good fit for you.
So important.
Mm-hmm.
If you could pinpoint one thing, what would you say has been your biggest challenge?
I think some of my biggest challenges, of course, has been anything math related. That has always been the one of the biggest things with the disability. Even from the time I was really young, we knew I wasn't going to be great at math. And sometimes with jobs, I would have employers where they didn't understand, especially with working with kids, why I struggle with that. And I just learned to, when I go into a situation, I just have to be very honest and say, I can't help out with the math. I can help out with anything else. And the kids know that now. One humorous story with that was I was helping out in a first grade room and I had a little girl who was needed help with her math. And I didn't get the problem right. And I remember her say, I said, oh, I'm sorry. I'm just not that great at math. And she goes, well, there's grown up school for that. And I just had a chance to laugh and that, so anything math that would probably be the biggest struggle for me.
And how, I mean, I think math is a problem for a lot of people.
Yes.
How has that changed? I remember being in school and everyone being told we're not going to have calculators in our pockets our entire life, and we do now. And have you found that technology improving over the years has changed that challenge for you?
In some ways, it has. For example, with the math disability, I can't read the face of a clock. I can see the numbers, I can see the hands, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I have a Fitbit that I can use, or a digital watch or a digital clock, which helps. Calculators have been kind of limited on how much they could help. They're certainly better than nothing, but it hasn't always been that effective for me. So that hasn't really helped a whole lot. What has helped was finding, especially when I was in school, the right program for me that had the least amount of math and science possible. And we did a philosophy-based math course rather than an algebra one. And while I still struggled in the class and it was hard, the professor was really understanding, and it was a little more forgiving than trying to figure out an algebra problem.
I didn't realize that they had those types of programs. It seems
Mhm.
like it would be a very important alternative or even a choice, an option
Right.
to have different kinds of math, even maybe science or languages for people who learn differently. Not everyone learns the same way. And
Exactly. Yeah.
to make sure everyone can get the same opportunities, it's really interesting to
Mhm.
hear about that because it's not really something that we hear about every day, or even universities, colleges, advertising.
Right. And a lot of it was my own research when I went in there. Because after I did community college, I figured out it wasn't the end of the world if I didn't do well in a class. I always would strive to do my best, but sometimes it just didn't always work out that way. So when I went into university, I went in it with really researching all my options and trying to find the right program, and finding what, even when I was there, what could we do about the math situation to make it as easy as we possibly could. And I also did resources along with it, with tutoring. That was another option too, going with the Office for Students with Disabilities to make sure I had the extended test time. And but a lot of it was just finding those resources and talking to people as well.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you put in a lot of time and
Mhm.
work to research everything that you needed. Would you say it's an area that needs um, improvement so that it's easier for people to find those resources?
I think it is. I think a lot of people do need to know what to do in situations like that. And I think there are a lot of universities are coming around with programs that are trying to get more people that have disabilities on campus, whether that's to finish a degree or to do another kind of programming. But I definitely think there needs to be more resources so people that are encountering situations where this just may not be the class for them are able to find programs that work.
Absolutely. It's so important to make sure the doors are completely open.
Mhm. Yes, definitely.
What would you say has been your biggest success factor in your career?
I think my biggest success factor would be getting my bachelor's degree. Despite people, I had professionals who told me, well, you're not going to go beyond community college. And I've had other ones tell me, your job choices are going to be really limited. And they were right. A lot of it was really difficult to complete college, but I was able to do it. So that is one of the biggest success things. And getting that job, this I've been with the same employer for over 10 years. So I that's another big success that has come out of just a lot of things.
Oh, absolutely. Is there a career setback that you've had that you later realize was actually an advantage?
Yes, definitely. I think I was working for an agency that helped people with disabilities. I took the job It wasn't the one that I applied for, but it was because I needed a position and it was in payroll, which I now find kind of funny that somebody that has a math disability decided, oh, I'm going to take this job in payroll. What could go wrong with that? Um, but whenever I was let go from the job from too many clerical mistakes, I realized that it just wasn't the right job for me. And it turned out whenever that also led me and gave me a lot of courage to be able to go on and to find the right job that was out there for me.
That's really wise. That's wisdom right there to see that not every job is for you.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe that door closing is actually going to open a window. It's not a cliche. These things happen. And,
Yep.
that disappointment, it's all temporary and it'll lead you to something better later. It's hard to see when you're in the moment, but
Right.
everything does lead somewhere else.
It certainly does. And there's been other jobs where I didn't want to move and it wasn't the right job for me. And I'm just so glad when things didn't work out because otherwise I would have just been stuck.
Mm-hmm. And with all the different kinds of work you're doing now, your day job,
Mm-hmm.
your endeavors, have you had to make a lot of sacrifices? And, the ones that you did have to make, have they been worth it?
My jobs, I've been very lucky to have the flexible schedule where I haven't had to make too many sacrifices with that. I'm able to plan things around it. So I've been very blessed to have that opportunity. And anytime that I do have to sacrifice or I do have to like sometimes be able to coordinate something, it always works out for the my benefit.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
That's a no regrets kind of
Yeah, no
like.
regrets.
Yes. And with that, are there any kind of special words of warning or encouragement that you would have as a result of your experience?
I would tell people to be able to know what they want to do. That's the number one thing. Know what they want and to have that confidence and that patience just to when they go forward, just to be able to find a way to do it.
Amazing. If someone were to say today, Michelle, I want to do what you do, what is the best educational preparation you think that they should go towards?
I think the first thing that they should do to get experience with working with kids is to work at a church nursery or to work at a daycare or babysitting. That gives you that experience, that gives your foot in the door. Um, and I would also encourage them to get involved with a local community college and see what programs they offer, or a university, see what programs they offer for that. And as for writing, I would definitely tell people to, start writing and to look for groups in your community or in your school. And I can still remember the first writing group I did with adults. I was a late teenager, and I can remember taking a very bad poem into this writing group. And luckily, through many things, I found what I'm good at, which is creative nonfiction. And just that I had that encouragement about sharing my disability, which I didn't want to do initially. But once I started doing it, it was the most healing thing I've ever done.
You mentioned before, talking with parents in terms of your day job. Are there any other kind of social obligations that go along with your work?
Right. I really don't have too many social obligations. We don't get a whole lot of communication with parents in my current one, but I do know that when we do speak about our children or what does happen, we have to really not say a whole lot that's going to give information out and to speak. So that is one of the things we want to protect the privacy of our students and their families as well.
So along those lines, are there people that you've encountered that have helped you kind of determine the personal characteristics of people in your field, those that tend to maybe be the happiest in their work or the most successful, or feel like this is where they belong. They are in their place.
I've encountered people that feel like every day that they go in that are the most successful, that they're making a difference.
Mm.
And that's the thing. It's having that shared vision. It's having that desire to want to be able to help others. And I see that at my job when I work at the school, but I can also see that when I encounter other people that work with those that have disabilities with writing or workshops or things such as that. It's when you can have that vision, a shared vision, that you're out there to make a difference, that makes people truly happy.
So important
Mm-hmm.
to actually to care, right? To
Yes, definitely.
want to make
Yep,
a difference. You're not just punching in.
exactly. Yep.
Are there any current issues or trends in this field that anyone who's interested in going into this field should be aware of? Are there um, things coming up like AI or other that people should keep their eye on?
I think one of the most important things to definitely keep your eye on is just like the different educational things that are coming up, and just some of the different changes that we've had just with in the past years, just with certain things, just the different kind of stressors that you might be encountering, some of the different family dynamics that you might get like in an area, and just the different things that have come up with COVID too. That's another big factor that people may want to consider if they're going into this field, with staff shortages and just the policies that the school may have.
Mm-hmm. And do you find, maybe it's changed since COVID, but do you find there's a culture in the educational system, or does it really depend on where you work?
It really depends on you where you work. You will find some places that are more like a family, and I love the building that I work in. That everybody is very close, everybody is very caring, and that just makes all the difference.
That's wonderful. I'm sure it's been 10 years in the same place now. I'm sure you've encountered some retirements or people leaving for whatever reason. When people leave this career completely, what are their usual reasons?
A lot of times people will leave completely because they've retired, they've put in a good amount of years, and they feel that this is just their time to say goodbye. And we always miss them. And those are the ones that it's always just a little bit sad, but we're definitely happy for them and grateful for the service they put in.
It's wonderful to see that this is really a calling for people. And so
Mhm.
when they leave, it's because they're just done working.
Yeah,
They're,
exactly.
they're
Yeah,
going to the beach and getting in a boat.
right.
Yes. Michelle, if you were to give yourself advice to a younger you, what would you say? What is something you wish you knew back then that you know now?
What I wish I would have known back then is that everything is going to work out. Because I can remember when I was really young, I thought it was always going to be hard to learn. I thought that just things were always going to be rough. And I didn't think, oh, things are going to work out. Things are going to go in my favor. And I just wish that maybe I would have went in with a different attitude and just trusted the process a lot more.
Michelle, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Some really great information in here. Before we close out, I'm going to give you the floor. I would love for you to share any information that you would love to give someone who's either thinking about going into a similar career as you or already starting to pursue it.
What I would tell someone who's going into the career of that is to really look into the different programs that are being offered and finding what you think is your unique place in that, and not to give up and not to get discouraged, and to just go into those jobs and just to go in with an attitude of making a difference and helping others.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.